Hello, and welcome back to the Small Print Podcast. I'm your host, Elise, and I blog at roulettereader.wordpress.com.
I'm Dawn, and I blog at bangbangbookblog.com.
And today we are going to discuss The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This book came out February 21st, and Dawn's going to do the synopsis.
All right. So, Star leads a double life. In one life, she's a 16-year-old who lives in a gang drug-infested neighborhood with her mother, her ex-con father, her younger brother, and her sometimes older brother. In her other life, she's a high school junior at Williamson Academy, a predominantly white school, with a white boyfriend, an Asian friend, and another white friend. Star struggles with her identity between her two worlds, especially after her best friend, who was black, was shot and killed by a white police officer.
So we'll go into what we disliked first and then go to likes, and then we have just a really brief spoiler edition at the end. Since this is a contemporary, it's not as much of a spoilery kind of situation as like a fantasy novel.
I mean, he dies, you know that going in.
Right, so. Yeah. It's more the outcome of that I think is like the mystery element, if you will, of this novel. But yeah, all right. Okay. Dislikes.
Who's first? I'm always first. You go first?
All right. One of my, and again, everything that I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good book. One of my dislikes was that I would have liked to know Khalil a little bit more before, he is shot like right in, what is it, the second chapter?
Yeah.
First chapter. That might have been the whole point. Like, none of these people who, have become national headlines over the past few years have been people that the general public really knows. But at the same time, I felt like this book was an attempt to humanize those people and bring their personalities forward a little bit more. And I didn't really feel like that completely happened.
So I'm going to disagree, because that was actually one of my likes.
Okay.
I like that he does die in the first chapter, which means, and this is a very long book, which means you have 420 pages of other. And I like that, I don't know if I should go into this now because we're in the dislike portion. I don't know.
Go ahead. I mean,
okay.
It's topical.
Okay, so what I like that she did about him, which I think, like you said, is pretty comparable to what's happening in real life, is that people have their prejudices about these kids who get shot. They're in gangs, they do drugs, or they sell drugs, so what do you expect to happen to their life? They're going to die at some point anyway. But I think we learn a lot about Khalil, that his grandmother is dying of cancer, his mother is a crackhead, he has to take care of his grandmother and he can't afford to because of her health care, and he was trying to, I don't know, was he selling?
He was selling because he wanted to try to get his mom clean and take care of his grandma.
Yeah.
And
I think some of the stuff's a little spoilerish, but he was trying to clean it up a little bit, and Star hadn't spoken to him in a long time.
Yeah.
And she's just now becoming friends with him again, but they grew up together and she knew the type of kid that he was. And so I think Angie Thomas purposely slowly shed some light into this kid's background, because initially you're like, oh, he's really disrespectful to the police officer and he's got on these really nice shoes, where does he get this money? And then as the story progresses, you as the reader also kind of change, oh, well, his grandmother is dying, he's trying to help her, maybe he may or may not be in a gang, I'm not going to say, so I think that she kind of did that well, considering he was dead and had to go through other characters.
She does do kind of like a slow release of his character throughout the novel, where we do, get these deeper points about him. I don't know, for some reason, it just didn't, as the book progressed, I was like, okay, that was good information to have. And even in the beginning, you can tell that he's not who this person is that he's projecting necessarily. They're at a party, so you're putting your best face forward, if you will, and I think you as the reader, if you're a critical reader, know that that's not who you're supposed to assume that he is, and I did like that. It was just something was missing in his character for me. But again, this is an attempt for me to really nitpick. This wasn't this brought it down, so yeah. What's your dislike?
One of my dislikes is, and this was one of my dislikes in Goodbye Days from Zentner, is that the characters had these conversations that meant nothing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air conversation went on forever and several times. And like, I think I understand the point of it, which it is to just kind of shed a light on how teens talk. I think when she's with her friends from her neighborhood, I can't remember the name of the neighborhood. Garden Heights. They talk differently than, some of their conversations are quite serious because they live in a serious neighborhood where there's a lot of serious grown-up adult stuff is going on. Whereas with her Williamson friends, it's really light, and I
Video
get
games,
that.
shopping.
Yeah, I get that. But I felt like it was too much, and it made the book longer. And this is a 450-page book, but it is also a good book for reluctant readers, especially if you live in a town where you have where it's more urban, which we do. We don't. Our town doesn't have a lot of gang activity and drugs, but it is there. So this is something that I would want to give to my teens, but it's a 450-page book, and I don't know
the size.
They're looking at me like, I'm not reading that, So I just wish she had to calm that down a little bit just to make it shorter.
Yeah, I definitely see your point, and I mean, obviously, she needed to make a difference between. Okay, this is where we are.
But it didn't need to be 3 pages of several. They have the same conversation about Fresh Prince, and that's how she connects with her boyfriend. But it's like, oh, come on, I kind of skipped over that stuff.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll agree with that. My other dislike, I only have one more, and I already told you about this one, but again, this is just something I noticed that didn't seem to fit. In the book, she and her brother Seven are talking about how they used to have this Harry Potter club or something like that. I can't remember if it was a club or if it was just something they did on their own. And she mentions that they always wanted to be Slytherins because the reason she gives is that Slytherins always came from rich families, and when you're a poor kid in the projects, all you want is money and you want to be rich. But that was really the Slytherin kids are the most vitriolic, blatantly racist kids. They call their other students half-bloods and mudbloods and blah, 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 and it's wouldn't you have also picked up on that? I don't know. It was just
Yeah,
ooh.
I would agree with that. I didn't catch that, but because we've sorted into houses, and I sorted into Slytherin twice. I was like, oh, I don't want to be Slytherin. I do not want to be Slytherin. I did not for a long time, and the only reason why I accepted it is because Lee Bardugo is a Slytherin, so I was like, okay. And she owned it, and I was like, okay, if she can own it, I can too.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, that just kind of, again, it was just something huh? It wasn't a bad necessarily thing, but yeah, that's really my only other dislike.
I have one other one. It's not a dislike, but I gave the book a 4.25. But it was enough to bring the rating down. And it is, I did not grow up in the neighborhood that Star grew up in, so I don't know that lifestyle. However, I am Black, and a lot of the issues that she's facing with her identity, and she has white friends on one side and Black friends on the other side, I struggled with that too. And because I guess I actually lived it, it's not new to me. It's not eye-opening necessarily. So it just didn't have a big impact on me as a Black person. I thought it was written well. Mm-hmm. I thought that, I could see myself in Star when I was a teen, as far as she's got, like I said, white friends and Black friends, and she kind of has to change the way she speaks and acts depending on who she's with. I totally understand that, and it was written well, but it just wasn't oh my God, I can't believe it. It was just okay. So that kind of affected my rating. Mm-hmm. It's not a dislike, but it did affect.
Yeah. And obviously, being a white person, I had the exact opposite response. It was kind of oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting. It was an illuminating book. Not enough to give it a 5 stars necessarily, but yeah, I learned a lot from this book. So, any others?
Nope, that's it.
All right, likes. I really, really appreciated how character-driven this novel is. Yeah. Every single person in this book, from the minor characters to Star herself, had a purpose, had a place in the book, had a distinct personality and voice, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves as a reader, is when you either have too many characters and they all sound and act and do the same thing, or you just don't care about any of them. Why read a book if you're not going to walk away caring about the characters? And as I was sitting here trying to write my list of likes, it was like all aspects about Star's personality, and I was like, well, I can't just like list. So Star herself was a great main character. I liked that she had a voice as a narrator that you could trust. She was critical of her own culture as well as the culture that she is a part of outside of um, her original community, I guess. Um, I found that very interesting that, she does see the problems in her neighborhood and she's not blind to that. She's not like, oh, well, that's just the way things are. Like, she realizes something has to change about the situation. And then, I don't know, I guess I'll stop it there. But, like, everyone, like, from Nana, her grandma, who was just, like, super feisty and hilarious.
Yeah, I liked her Nana.
Uncle Carlos was more of the, not an authority figure necessarily. I mean, he was, but he kind of had to step in and act as her father for a few years. He really helped them, which I was kind of untrusting of his character at first for some reason. I felt like he wasn't going to be on her side because he was a detective.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't end up necessarily being the case. I don't know, just every character had a really dynamic personality, I felt.
Yeah, that's what one of my likes was as well, was all the characters. And there were a couple which I felt could have, they were just kind of there. But I feel like all of the characters, especially the black characters, kind of represent all types of black people who are in any situation. So you have Star's father, who was a great character, by the way. I think besides Star, he was the best character, and he had the best growth in character arc. The father represents someone who grew up in that neighborhood and is still there, and he's loyal to it. But as Uncle Carlos, he grew up there too, but he got out. He still cares, but he's out. The mom is kind of in between. She's still there. She wants to get out. She does care. But at the same time, she does not, like, invested in this, like, community like the father is. You have Seven, who is very intelligent. He's on his way to a good school. But he's also like, I gotta stay here. Star is in the middle. Kenya is kind of like, I'm here, whatever. Her mom represents people who get stuck and beaten. And so I think, like, a lot of the characters there are kind of representative of people who grew up in the neighborhood. And it's not just necessarily a black neighborhood. It's any kind of poor neighborhood, if you will. They're all different types of people, so I like that. The father, like I said, he was a great character. He was very frustrating. Yes. And I'm like, if he makes these people stay in this neighborhood, or does, maybe that's kind of a spoiler, but it's like he's so stuck on Community, which I thought the Community was great. Like, they had a really great group of people that, in the...
Like Mr. Lewis and Tim and the people in the shops next door, and you really felt like you grew up here. Like this, like she gave you so much information. Like you got everybody's history, and even Cleo's grandma and her daughters, and it was very dynamic.
And it was intentional because I think once again people have prejudices of the ghetto, but it is a neighborhood, it is a family. They do have block parties, and they do take care of each other, and so I think she purposely it's not all just bad all the time. So I kind of did not like the boyfriend. Chris? I kind of felt he was not developed well. I think he was important to the story because she was holding back herself. And he was important to that. But as far as
I liked Chris because he let her be her and encouraged her to be her, whereas she had made up in her mind that he didn't need her to be what she really is, and therefore all the people at Williamson didn't either. But he kind of forced that out of her a little bit, I guess. I liked that. I liked that he was more open-minded than some of his contemporaries.
I guess,
But, I guess now that you say that, I don't know.
The other friend
he was just there to be her support, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I guess not all the characters are going to be great. And he does serve a purpose, and it was right. I thought it was well written. Her Asian friend, I don't remember her name. Maya. She just seemed to be there because she was Asian. Like, I know. Like I said, they all can't be winners. There were a lot of characters in this book.
Yes, there were a lot of characters.
But I was like, okay.
Yeah, I definitely feel like as the reader, you walk away like knowing and appreciating her Garden Heights life a little bit better. Just because more time is spent there in the book, and that's where she grew up. It's more her. But I liked Maya. I thought she had a fun personality. She was really sweet. She was I don't know. I liked Maya because Star helped her realize that she didn't have to accept little racist jabs from people because they're her friends. She didn't have to sit there and listen to how people say, oh, do you eat cats because you're Chinese? It's like she kind of encouraged Maya to be strong in herself too. That happens more at the end of the book, so it's not completely fleshed out or developed, but I didn't have a problem with her.
Okay. Kenya. I had a Kenya in my life. I grew up and I had one white friend. Her name was Abigail, and she's red hair, freckles. Then I had a black friend named Nisi. And Nisi was kind of my Maya because she always called me lame and you're not black enough, and I didn't know how to double dutch and all this other bullshit. But she was a good friend. And then we all went to the same church at the same time, and for the life of me, I don't know how I balanced those two friends because Nisi could not stand Abby, and Abby was afraid of Nisi. She wasn't a scary girl, but I don't know. She was just intimidated her.
Strong personality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we all went to the same congregation, but I don't know how I was friends with both of them, and we all never played together ever. It's weird. But I did have a Kenya in my life, and I also had as I grew up, it was I behaved differently in front of my black friends than white friends, and it's not like glaringly different, but that is always kind of in the back of your mind as a black woman of we try really hard to not come across as ghetto, and you will not believe how much effort I put into the way I behave so that people don't think I'm ghetto and put me into this little pigeonhole of sassy black woman or ghetto or something. I worked in a wealthy neighborhood, and it was like all white people. They were all very wealthy, and it's nothing that they did to me, but just me as a person. I always made sure that they knew that I was well educated because I did not want them to think that, oh, this little ignorant black girl doesn't know what she's doing. And, you live with that, and she lives with that too. And I appreciate that she kind of brought that out to people who may not know. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why I like Star a lot. She also had an inner monologue that she shared, and we talked about this before. I appreciate the inner monologue, and there are books where they don't do that, and you're left to guess the intentions of the character, and I don't want to have to guess.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me because it makes the character come across as uneven. Mm-hmm. Like, why are you behaving this way when you weren't behaving that way on the other page?
Or you just said something that completely contradicts. Yeah, you're right. Star's stream of conscious was very consistent with her behavior, or if it wasn't, she had an explanation, and it was, especially around the time of the trial and her speaking to the media and everything. Yeah.
Especially in this book, because in the beginning of the book, she's a witness, but she doesn't want no one to know that it was her. Mm-hmm. And so that's her struggle. And you see her kind of progress as the book goes on, because it is a long book. And like we said, the incident happens within the first 25 pages. And so you're left with 400 plus pages of how is this going to play out? This is a long book. And we see her go from, I don't want people to know it was me, I'm kind of embarrassed in front of, my Williamson friends, to should I stand up and be the voice of the people? So she does grow, and she does hit some bumps along the way. So I thought that was done well.
Yeah.
Her growth.
Yeah. That kind of segues nicely into my last which is the realistic ending or conclusion. You mentioned the dad. His character arc was great. By the end of the book, he's a little bit more realistic about what his family needs, which is his bread and butter. Like, he wants to protect and take care of his family, and through this whole process, he kind of learned that I can still be here, but not be here. Like, I can still protect my family, be true to my roots, but I don't have to keep my family in it. I can get them out, especially because things in that neighborhood started to get really tumultuous with the rioting and all that stuff. I don't think they would have just moved out had none of this happened, because, I don't know, I got a sense that they were okay there before all of the stuff went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
the mom, like, gets a much better job. It's implied that she gets a better job. They don't exactly say.
No, if she got that job or not.
Because Star asks when they go to the house in the suburbs. She's like, "Can we afford this?" And the dad's like, "Mm-hmm." Like, yeah, we can. He just lost his store, so he wasn't pulling in much at the time. So she must have. Yeah. She must have gotten the job. Because he was repairing his store and that kind of thing.
As in the beginning of the book, they were probably fine, but when Khalil died and it started to get into like the gangs and stuff, then it started to get a little dicey.
Yeah. And just what happens with Khalil, I won't, say specifically, other than obviously he died, but like the outcome of his case and that kind of thing. I expected that to be what happened, because that's pretty much. I guess we'll save that for. We don't even need to go into a spoiler edition.
I think there were no happy endings in this book because it's not realistic. We're still dealing with it now.
Yeah.
And it just sort of ended on what's happening now. People are like standing up and saying we're not going to take this anymore. And of course, there's some people who are there just to break windows and loot, but most of the people are really there for change.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the story ends, because that's how we're still living with it now.
Mm-hmm. And Star walks away from all of this a stronger person and more self-assured, which I think was something she really needed to find by the end of this book. We see her starting to hide herself a little bit less and less as she's with her Williamson friends and in that side of her life, which I thought was great.
One thing I feel like a total loser is that I did not realize that the title spelled thug. I was like, I didn't realize it until she talked about it in the book.
Song,
I was like, I didn't even see that. Duh.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. I think those are all my likes. It was really Star and all the other characters. The Khalil thing was one of the like I mentioned in the dislike portion. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty good book. I think it lives up to the hype.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
A whole lot of hype.
Yeah, it did.
Around this book, and
potential Prince pick.
Yeah. I've not been on the Prince committee, but I've been on a committee where you have to pick best books, and I think this would be a honor. I don't know if it would win. Usually the winning book it's got a lot going on, so it's usually not told from start to finish. It usually either is told from end to beginning, or it's in flashbacks a lot. What's another thing I noticed with, I don't know. And also another thing is that Prince books tend to not be commercially popular, whereas this one might be. Started in the New York Times bestseller. Not that they purposely don't pick those, but traditionally, they're usually some obscure book that you've never heard of, with the exception of March. But
I feel like, wasn't Bone Gap on the New York Times bestsellers for a while?
I don't know. If it didn't hit number one. Like, you will never see a Sarah J. Maas on the list. Or, like, well, they don't pick fantasy anyway, but I don't know. Anyway, we're just rambling now. Okay.
To be determined, I suppose.
Yeah. The next book we will be reading and discussing is Traitor's Kiss by Erin Beatty. That doesn't come out until May.
I never know how to pronounce it. Beatty. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Isn't that... No, that's an April published book.
It's April?
Yeah, it's April.
Okay. And thanks for joining us. And
we'll catch you in the next podcast.